College football is back. So we're back here on the Big Mountain, and I have a very special guest for everyone talking UNLV football. Tony Cardasco, welcome to the Big Mountain.
It's a terrific pleasure to be here. I'm so excited about college football. Although, a few months ago, this game wasn't supposed to happen, right? Because it was
Yes.
supposed to be the game there. That was now it's replaced by the big fight, Canelo Crawford, and they moved this game, I think, to week 0. And I think it's advantageous for UNLV, right? And to Coach Mullen there, because now you have a chance to open at home in front of a home crowd, work out some of the bugs there, and then go on the road the second week to Sam Houston. So I think it's going to work out in UNLV's favor. And I see it kind of like when you look at this, right? It's like a 3-game mini season right now
Yeah.
and now they have 3 bye weeks through the Rebels, which is absolutely unheard of. What are you going to do with all that time? It could be either good or it could be something that's bad, right? But I look at it as a 3-game mini season. And when Coach was talking to the team, he said, listen, it's not just about the opener, but we have a 3-game spurt here with, again, the game against Idaho State on Saturday, and then the following week at Sam Houston, and then back home for the big game
Yes.
against UCLA. Then you have a bye week. You have a week to prepare for Miami of Ohio, and a week after that as well. So, yeah, I think the schedule's definitely going to be something right now that is in the advantage, very favorable for UNLV.
I agree with you. I really like this kind of coming out of the gate here against this team, especially with, as we're going to get into, some of the roster turnover, coach turnover, and things like that. I think it plays out really well. I know I would think 3 weeks off during the season, maybe not what coaches would really like. I know when we talked to a few coaches at Mountain West Media Days, they said, at least from the coaching side, sometimes it gives them too much time where they overanalyze, they overthink things, and that can, cause some harm. Dan Mullen's been through this before, so no real concern for UNLV. But let's talk about the season here. As I said, serious turnover here, but we're bringing in so much talent. I'd love to hear from you. You've been to every fall practice so far, so you're the guy in the know. Let's start with offense, then we'll go to defense. I am so impressed with the talent they brought in. Of course, they keep Jet Thomas, who's going to be one of, if not the best running backs in the league this year. They add support to him. Tell me about this offense, because I expect some really awesome things from them.
Yeah, again, it starts with the quarterbacks, and at least initially, we'll have a 2 QB attack. And I feel for the Idaho State game, again, just a hunch, because no starter's been named,
Right.
and out at practice, there's been no separation. But I feel again that Dan Mullen wants to just run the ball as much as possible. And if that's the case, we'll see Alex Orji as the starting signal caller. You can't go wrong with either quarterback.
Right.
University of Michigan transfer and a talented runner and athlete and a gun of an arm, Alex Orji. And then, of course, you have Anthony Colandrea, University of Virginia transfer. And I like Colandrea, I like his arm. Underrated as a runner.
Okay.
I think I might have called him Fran Tarkenton one day because his scramble ability is really good. And
Okay.
once he gets out, deceptive speed,
Hmm.
and he'll dive for the first down. He gives that extra effort. He'll dive towards the pylon. In spring, in one of the scrimmages, he dove for the pylon twice
Hmm.
in one of their games
Okay.
there in a mock scrimmage game. So I like both of them. Receiving core, unbelievable. Troy O'Meara, they're coming in, and he is a talented guy. Today at practice, I saw him I thought it was the catch of the entire fall camp,
Hmm.
where I didn't think he was going to run and catch up to the ball. And then he makes a diving toe tap, like right there, out of bounds, comes up with the big grab. And I really like his athleticism, 6'4" and tall guy. And then Jaden Bradley, who was with the team last year. You have Day Reynolds, who is another transfer who is at most of the players on this team. Now, I think it's up to 14 SEC transfers, but
Okay.
there's a lot of players that played in the Southeastern Conference too.
Hmm.
And so when you look at a guy like like Reynolds there. He played at Florida. Of course, he was there with Dan Mullen, and then he went
Right.
to Pitt, and now he's here. JoJo Earl's talented. Alabama and TCU transfer. They have 7 or 8 players that can catch the football. So they are deep, they are talented. And then the tight ends, my goodness, like every single room is just stacked. You need to stay healthy. I want them to be healthy so I can just see how potent this offense in the spread attack is going to be. Nick Elksnis is the first player that, when Mullen came back to coaching, he recruited Elksnis, who was with him at Florida. And Elksnis now one of the tight ends. Varkey's Gums is another player at tight end. My goodness, they have so much talent there. Jay Beasley, Veltre Jefferson. You're going to hear all these guys. They could go 2 tight end set. They can go 1 tight end. They can do a ton of things. Haven't seen a bunch of motion, but we know that that's going to be coming, right, in his offense.
Yes.
And then the running backs. I feel, and I'm going to go out, this is my 46th year of covering UNLV football, and 1 through 4, 5, maybe running backs, you can see just how much depth and talent they have there. So, of course, you have Jet Thomas back over 900 rushing yards a season ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the newcomer is Jalen Glover. And Glover, I told someone, I said, I would not be surprised if Glover, I know I make these crazy predictions every day, if Glover outrushes Thomas, I would not be shocked. I think they're all going to have terrific seasons. They hit the hole so well. They all fit into this system. And then Mullen was telling us at his presser yesterday, he was saying how much that he fits the personnel into his offense too. So he builds it a little bit, makes some tweaks. But Kayvon Lee's another player that you have. Lee's a talented guy, Penn State, Mississippi State transfer. You look up and down this roster. This is UNLV. You go
Yeah.
back like 3 years ago, and there was really nothing happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a fourth back that I really do like, and his name is Darian Jones. And Jones came in as a freshman. He's on my all-spring football team because the last 2 springs, he just has ramrodded, run over players, what have you. He's finally going to get some totes. He'll get some totes this year, and I'm looking forward to that. And then the rebuilt offensive line. You have the 2 tackles, I think, because no depth chart from the coach, but I think we'll see Will Thomas on the left side. He could play either side. They're interchangeable. Him and Austin Boyd, I think, will be the tackles. Malik McGowan will be one of the guards on the left side. Alani Makahili is a name that maybe fans have heard from before because he was at UNLV, transferred to UCLA, and now he's back at UNLV. And he's bigger than ever. I think he was 360-ish. And then Reed Williams, the starting center, and he's really talented. And he was an FCS, like All-American pretty much there. And I think that he's a guy. I only saw 1 bad snap through all those practices.
Wow.
1
Okay.
bad snap. That I recall there, and shotgun. And yeah, so really good, strong guy there. And that was a major concern coming into this season.
For sure. And you look across the board there with the skill positions, and they are 2, 3, 4, 5 players deep. Cameron
Man.
Friel coming back here at UNLV, really going to be the 3rd quarterback, but
Number
he's been
3.
there for a while. So you've got 3 guys that could really start for UNLV at quarterback. You mentioned 4 or 5 running backs, 4 or 5 receivers. Just the talent there is just oozing out of this offense.
Yeah, a ton of depth. He really built some solid depth. And now it's just, I was here during the Jerry Tarkanian era, and his best coaching job was when they won the national championship, yes. But to me, what impressed me most was the way that he handled all of the talent and how to give players minutes, because that could get in the way of just about any organization, right? Any
Yes.
team.
Yeah.
And Tark was a master at just kind of figuring out the pieces and how they would work. And that is where Coach Mullen is at, because he has so much talent now. And we started to see them start to gel a little bit more. So he knew how to bring them along, watch them throughout the course of the spring, the fall camp. I think They just started to put in a lot of plays this past week. They really implemented the game plan late last week, and then they came into this week here, and now I think they'll be ready to go on Saturday.
Looking forward to it. I know, paraphrasing here, but I heard Coach speak. I think it was the end of last week, and a lot of the reporters are asking, "Who's your starter? Who's going to start? Who's doing this?"
Ah,
And his response was, "We're getting a lot of players, a lot of reps." Paraphrasing what he said there, but like
yeah.
again, to speak to how deep this team is, we're not naming starters. We're not giving them the bulk of the carries or the bulk of the snaps. We are, spreading this out because we are this deep and we want everyone to get their reps. So, it speaks to exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, there's a ton of talent, and everyone's been pressing coach on who the starter at QB is going to be. He said all along throughout the camp, he said, I'll play both of them.
Yeah.
They both have different skill sets,
Yep.
and I'm going to need both of them for us to be successful. They're both going to play.
Yep.
And it was really cool, though, because Alex Orji, one day at camp said, the quote, I asked him a question, about him at Michigan and competing for the starting role a season ago
Hmm.
and how that prepared him for the competition here. And he had said to me, he said, it's not a competition, it's a camaraderie. He
Hmm.
said, we're really good friends. We get along. We hang out off the field. And he said, we are good friends and we're growing together and we're here to build something special. And it wasn't just, coach speak or what have you, athlete speak, so to say. Uh, he genuinely meant that they really are very close there in that QB room, which is really good to see.
That's great. And you mentioned the line, so maybe transitioning from offense to defense here. I did take a look, and that's maybe my biggest concern. I'm going to ask you what your biggest questions are later in the discussion. But when I look at the lines, there's 6 players, if I counted correctly, that are seniors on the offensive line. So that speaks to not with UNLV, but they've had the reps, they've been through it before. They're older student athletes, right? So I think that speaks heavily for how well that line could gel fairly quickly. On the D line, I saw 4 seniors. So let's go to the defense. Let's start with that line. Where are we at here on defense? Of course, we know McDuffie's coming back at linebacker.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
he'll be the stud that Woodard was last year. How are we feeling about the defense?
I'm feeling a lot better about the defense too. I think they've really started to come along. And again, it's all about the depth, right? And the talent at each position. And they'll play, it's basically a 3-3, type of a defensive structure, 3-3-5.
Sure.
And when you look at it though, like Paul Gunther has been amazing because every play, every single down, he's mixed up the defense to try to confound the offense.
Hmm.
I'm not kidding you. They will not face, I've talked to a lot of the offensive side, a lot of the players, during camp, and I said, is this going to make you better because of all the different looks? Absolutely. And I said, will you face this many different looks during the season? No, no way. No way. So Paul Gunther, right now, the MVP of the defense. And when you look at the down linemen, you start at defensive end there on the left side, and you have Osei Agbasi. He comes back, played in, I think, 10 games last season. And so he's a pretty good guy to have in there. Corey Hall, the NAU transfer, right behind him. You have more depth behind those two. Jalen Lee, I think, will get the start. And again, coach did not have a depth chart, but I'm just guessing like who I think might fit in to the defensive structure too,
Right.
as we did with offense. But Jalen Lee is another player to look out for. Florida LSU transfer,
Hmm.
down lineman, 6'3", about 300 pounds. Lucas Conte is an absolute animal, and he has grown a ton. So he'll be the other down lineman, played in 11 games for UNLV last season. And it shows me if if some of these players are good, is if they impress the new coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
You have to start all over again, square one, and you have to beat out guys that have a ton of talent very fast. This will be a very fast football team. There at outside linebacker, I just can't say enough about the Chief Borders. Oh my goodness. I got it. There was one practice, right? he had 4 sacks
Mm.
and he had 1 fumble recovery
Wow.
in practice. He's an absolute animal. They're going to wind up, what they'll do is I'm sure teams are going to catch on. They're going to start to double team him. But then you have some good players. Donovan Spellman came on late in camp. You'll be hearing that name called a lot.
Okay.
He could go at the other side at a defensive end. The outside linebackers are so fast, and they'll just bum rush the quarterback, plain and simple. I like what they're doing. And then, there's pretty much just 2 linebackers because we're going to see a ton of nickel. We'll
Yeah.
see a lot of nickel defense. And especially in the first game, I was asking Coach Mullen about if this game will test his DBs because last year Idaho State had a 3,000-yard passer.
Mm.
So they're going to be putting the ball in the air. But the 2 starters, I think, defensively at linebacker, yes, a healthy Marcel McDuffie is back. He's on a mission, I got to tell you. And I felt as though, so when he got hurt last season, even though, Woodard had that all-star, all-American season,
Yeah.
when McDuffie was out of there, McDuffie's sort of the glue guy
Mm.
there defensively. And just a guy that is soft-spoken, but he just gets it done on the field. And I remember that 15 tackle game he had against Air Force. And he can definitely tackle, and he's a difference maker. He really is. And the guy that talks the most, I think, on the defensive side is Justin Flo,
Okay.
who was at Oregon, and then he went to the University of Arizona.
Mm.
He came out, I think, as a 4 or 5 star out of high school. He was one of the top players in America and had all sorts of issues there, what have you. But he's here in Vegas, and he is so laser focused, and he is the guy that gives them the juice defensively. He'll just get everyone fired up. And then, at nickel, right? Because they're just, I think, going to play for the most part, just 2 linebackers. But every play, you might see someone coming off the edge. You might see a corner blitz. You might see them doubling up on one side and going with more players, to go heavier and to get some penetration.
Mm.
This Paul Gunther scheme, I can't figure it out because it's just every single play, he would send the safety. They would blitz and do stunts up front. I really enjoyed watching him there in camp. And you'll see at the nickel guy, Amari Brown, Brown from Kansas State and South Florida. We'll see him, I think, getting the most time there. The corners, oh my goodness, really strong competition there. And no telling who's going to start. It's like the quarterback position.
Yeah.
But I think Andrew Padrell, who went to Montana State, played in, what did he tell me, 16 games last year? I think his team was 15-1, because of the playoffs.
Right. Right.
And so we know he'll be durable, at least,
Yep.
if you go the distance.
Yep.
And he's one of the guys to look out for. They have so many other, Quandarius Keys is a player from Pearl River Community College, LaTerrence Welch, who was at LSU and Arizona State. And then the 2 safety, another guy, Denver Harris. Can't forget about him, another cornerback. I think the secondary just really came on in camp.
Okay.
They really developed. They're communicating well. They connect so well right now, and I'm really impressed with them. Jakeem Joseph at one of the safety positions, and then Jake Pope, who went to both Alabama and Georgia.
Right.
And he was one of our representatives at Mountain West Conference Media Day, and a good guy to really just talk to, about that experience playing in the SEC. And he wears number 7 like Woodard did a season ago. And he's the guy that keeps them together. So I'm impressed. And then if you want to go special teams,
Yeah.
Adam Shire,
Absolutely.
just, real quickly, I think the
Yep.
2 top return guys that we're going to see back for UNLV, I think we're going to see a lot of JoJo Earl. He'll be back
Yep.
there. D'Angelo Irvin. And every time Irvin, who didn't really get a number of touches a season ago, last couple of years, every time he touches the ball, though, something big happens. So watch for him to break open a big play. And then the punter is Cam Brown from Australia.
Mm.
Interesting story about Cam Brown. So, Coach Dan Mullen was looking for a punter. So he reaches out to his friends in Australia at Pro Kick, and he says, "I need a punter here in Las Vegas. This is before the start of spring practice, and can you send me some film on your top 5 punters?" And they picked out Cam Brown,
Mm.
and Cam Brown, after they said, "Yeah, we want that guy," 2 weeks later finds himself in Las Vegas, like all by himself from Australia. So it's really a cool story that, he came out here in 2 weeks' time. And then I think
Mm.
Caden Costa, the Ole Miss and Memphis transfer, will be on placement for UNLV. But
Okay.
well-rounded team. I mean, from top to bottom, some of the best talent I've seen. Now it's just a matter of they can put it all together. We saw some signs that they're going to start to gel, or they're gelling right now,
Yeah.
and we'll see how they take that into game number one.
Well, maybe a high level question. I mean, you've seen what that team did last year, fantastic record, making it to the Mountain West Championship game, going just a smidgen short there, but super talented team. If you think back and compare early practices last year to what you're seeing this year, what would you say? How do they compare? What maybe sticks out? Just would love to hear maybe that compare contrast from you on the two teams.
Yeah, great question. I would have to say last year's team, uh, this year has more talent top to bottom. Last year, I think at this time, just more cohesion. They were more connected, more together. With this talent, the sky's the limit, and you get all these kids, and a lot of them, didn't get the opportunity to play, but they're talented,
Right.
at their previous stops, and that gives them a lot of that chip on the shoulder there, and I think that they would like to prove themselves here in Las Vegas. So I think it's a much more top to bottom, more talented, more athletic. It's
Yeah.
by far like one of the most athletic teams I've ever seen here in Las Vegas. And then at those skill positions, like you were saying, man, like I can't imagine. I don't know how you stop them.
Yeah.
You know, I've been watching a lot of film on the spread offense,
Hmm.
and just the way that Mullen and then Corey Dennis, who's going to be his offensive coordinator here, uh, just the way that they kind of put their heads together and then just added like some different tweaks for the personnel. It's just maybe in years past, I would say, well, the offense is going to have to outscore the defense, but I think the defense is going to be, I think they're going to be stout at times. I really do. And I think
Okay.
they're going to be coming up with a lot of big plays, especially from Chief Borders.
I love what you're telling me. Love to hear it from somebody that has seen, on the field, seen the players, seen the practices. I'd like to end here with maybe your biggest question mark going into the season and your biggest strength going into the season. So let's start with questions. We've talked about some of this, but if I had to pin you down to say, hey, what's maybe the biggest thing that has you, worried or just questioning the season? What would that be right now?
Well, late in spring, I would have to definitely say offensive line, because again, just piecing together
Yeah.
all these different parts, and they haven't played together.
Right.
But now, through all those repetitions, I could see some sense of semblance of order and just the way that they're playing, and they're starting to get connected. And then just watching what they have to do within the spread offense, it's all about the execution. It's not
Mm.
about pancaking guys on every play. It's about if you hit a guy in the right shoulder and turn him just enough
Right.
to get that back through there to squeeze through. So they are learning all those techniques, and I think that they are no longer a question mark. I don't
Okay.
really have like a major question mark. And then
Okay.
when we talk about the strengths, the running back stable at the very top of my list.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about them. And, even when they're switching up defenses and doing some things, they're still finding cracks and ways to break through. And they're just hard runners, and they all have different wiggles and different skill sets, I think, that are going to help them out. And again, 1 through 4, man, I wouldn't like even number 4, and
Yeah.
Darian Jones, I think he could break a big play. And I also think they're going to utilize them a lot more in the passing game. I really do.
Okay.
And then another strength would have to be the secondary. And I never thought that I would say that because in years past, there were some weaknesses.
Right.
And let's be frank about this. One of the reasons why perhaps they didn't win the championship was because they didn't have the depth there
Right.
in the
Right.
secondary. And now they definitely do. And I just like the way they're communicating. And I felt as though I saw improvement from day one until now. And I think they're gonna make some big plays in that secondary, rest assured.
Well, I can tell you, you're exciting me. I'm glad I get to watch this team here in just a few days because the sky's the limit, I think, for at least, the athletic ability and where they're at. And that's maybe where I want to just end this real quick. I don't need a record prediction unless you want to give one,
I don't
but
have one.
okay. All right. So I'm expecting big things again from this team. You saw, kind of that massive letdown when they lost Odom and had the transfers, but then they picked it right back up. And man, Mullen just has built this sucker maybe to a whole new level. We'll find out on the field, but it's exciting times there for the Rebels.
Yeah, and I think, again, that big game here, and you hate to put all the marbles on
Yeah.
the UCLA game, but that's like in town, that's the only billboard you see up. I hope that fans show up this Saturday to watch the Idaho State game, but
Mhm.
they're really trying to build that up. They now opened the 300 level at Allegiant Stadium, expecting a big crowd. And if they win that game, then they get the bye week
Right.
and then you have so much momentum. That's kind of key there. To me, that's the most important game, especially early on. Of course, at Boise State, the Rebels have a much better running back attack this year.
Hmm.
And I'm just being honest here.
Yeah.
Um, I I just like what they're going to do. And again, you want to start the run game. Don't get caught by any of these teams. The one game that frightens me right now a little bit is at Wyoming.
Hmm.
At Wyoming because I think they're going to be much improved.
Yes.
And you can't just take it 1 week at a time. And they have a bye week to prepare for that game too.
Yeah.
But once you're up there in altitude, crazy things happen. But I think it'll be a very successful season. And hopefully you can have me back on to talk about a championship game.
Absolutely would love it. Tony, thank you so much for your time here. For those that don't know who you are, I believe most of our Rebel fans do, but maybe some other Mountain West fans don't. Where can people find you on the socials or podcasts or whatever else you do?
All right. You could always find me at Tony Dasco on X or Twitter. And then I do the Believe in Vegas podcast on the Believe Network. I do hockey stuff. I cover the Raiders, all that. But that's where you can mostly find me and love to talk to fans of all sorts. So thank you so much. And thanks for having me today.
All right, thank you. And with that, hey, we'll wrap this one up. Football season is just days away. Make sure you like this episode, subscribe if you like our content, and we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.